Hey and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing a classic challenge. We'll be playing Final Fantasy I with only healers. Just to clarify, we'll be playing this Final Fantasy I. Not this one, or this one, or this one. While they're all essentially the same game, the Pixel Remaster has several quality of life and balancing changes that make this challenge go much smoother. But it doesn't have the post-game content or super bosses that were added in some of the other more modern releases of this game. The challenge is still more or less the same as if I had played on one of the older versions. I just don't have to spend 5 hours grinding between each dungeon. So, plot. There's not a huge amount of it. Basically, things are kinda fucked. There's a prophecy, warriors of light, special crystals, missing princess, all pretty standard stuff. The king sends 4 shitty chiropractors to save his daughter, and off we go. One of the quality of life changes in the Pixel Remaster is maps of buildings, cities, and dungeons. This makes hunting down treasure and navigating much simpler. Of course, since we're white mages, we can't use most weapons, just hammers and staves for the most part. And we can use even fewer pieces of armor. One might think that this would make the money grind easier because we have fewer things to buy. One would be wrong. The starting town, Cornelia, has Cure, Dia, Protect, and Blink. We need all of these on at least one of our mages to start with. With our starting spells in hand, we can go straight over to the first dungeon. Calling it a dungeon is honestly probably overselling it a bit. The enemies are weak, it's only got one floor with a handful of easily accessible chests. No particularly interesting loot here, a leather helmet which can raise the defense of one of my mages by a single point, and a tent so I can sleep on the ground if I want, I guess. With a few levels under our belt, we can almost immediately take on the first boss. He's the first boss. No gimmicks, no real difficulty. Garland is basically just a normal enemy with slightly more health. I do boost the defense of my party to make my healing spells go a bit further, but honestly that even wasn't necessary. Then it's just a matter of bonking him with hammers and healing as needed. Easy game, easy life. Save the princess, more prophecy nonsense, get a bridge built, cinematic text crawl, and we're into the next area. There's a substantial difficulty spike in the enemies here, but they also drop more gold. So we win a fight, go back to Cornelia to sleep, rinse and repeat until the squad's strong enough to actually walk around without dying. Next stop is the town of Pravoka. There's a fight inside the city, but we are allowed to gear up in the shops beforehand. We can get everyone some gloves, and the spells are also going to get more expensive with every store we come across. The main grinding I did in this run was just for gold. Now this fight also isn't difficult, just very, very long. The pirates don't hit hard, but neither do we, and there are a lot of pirates. So it's a lot of bonking. After several minutes, we get the ship. Easy peasy. Probably the earliest and lamest way you get a vehicle in any of these games. The spells here are Blinda, Silence, Null Shock, and Invis. The enemies out in the ocean are another difficulty spike. Basically, every time we enter a new area, we'll hit a new difficulty spike. It's almost like the world was designed with player progression in mind. So I spent a bit of time grinding and backtracked to Matoya's cave. Matoya is missing a crystal eye. We will deal with this later. There are also a few helpful consumables in here, so we steal from a half-blind witch. With a bit more health and a few extra spell slots, I'm able to make it across the sea and into Elfheim, the very creatively named City of Elves. This city has some actual armor upgrades, which is nice. We'll have to do some grinding for the copper armlets, but we need every point of defense we can get our soft, uncalloused mage hands on. We've got 2 spell stores here. In the first one, we've got upgraded versions of Cure and Dia, both very helpful, Null Blaze, and Heal. The second one has Poisona, Fear, Null Frost, and Vox. Silence isn't a very common status effect in this game, but we'll still definitely want to be able to cure it on the off chance that we do actually get hit with it. Now on to the Elven Castle for the next part of the quest. The Elven King is zonked the fuck out, so we gotta go get him some caffeine. The next dungeon is the Marsh Cave. Lots of poison and a fair bit of undead. With all our Dia spells, the undead are easy. The poison is less so. We have ways to deal with it, but it's a resource drain. Most of the loot here isn't interesting. Potions, gil, and gear we can't use. The only thing of note here is a free copper armlet. The boss of this demon is a group of 4 Pisco demons. They are very scary. They hit super hard and have a lot of health. I mean, they've got a lot of health compared to the single-digit damage we do. But we have a secret weapon. Evasion. Can't kill what you can't hit after all. Boosting each party member's evasion 4 or 5 times means that the Pisco demons basically just can't hit us, leaving us able to beat them to death one little bonk at a time. After we're oiled up and the enemy just can't get a grip on any of my little mages, it takes like 3 minutes of auto-battling, and then we win. Bing bang boom, crown obtained. Now we have to bring the crown up to this random-ass ruined castle up here, give it to this totally not suspicious king sitting alone in the middle of this ruined castle. The Astos boss fight is significantly easier than the Pisco Demon fight. Astos is primarily a caster. He has an instant death spell on top of a bunch of status and debuff spells like sleep and slow. Super fun and balanced fight. Love instant death magic. He is, however, also able to be silenced. Status effects don't wear off in this game, so once he's silenced, we're free to just raise the party's evasion as much as possible, then bring out the bonk. 1 damage at a time. Okay, we don't always hit for 1 damage, but it's still not good. Astos goes down and we steal the crystal eye that he had, apparently, for some reason. We take that back to Matoya and get the monster energy. Give that to the Elf King and receive the Mystic Key. This unlocks a bunch of locked doors in castles and dungeons that we've been to previously, so it's time to backtrack and get some upgrades. And it's also necessary to get the next key item, the Nitro Powder from Cornelia Castle. The Western Keep, where we fought Astos, has the Power Staff, a staff with a little extra attack power, and the Marsh Cave has a silver armlet. Alright, time to get access to most of the rest of the map. Head northwest to Mount Dorgar, home of the dwarves, give the nitro to this dude, engage in a little bit of blast mining, and create the Panama Canal. Now we can sail out of this big lake and zoom around the rest of the map. The next town we'll hit is Melman, home of the Silver Armlet store. Upgrades to Cure, Dia, and Heal, always helpful, and Life, all useful, all expensive. The next dungeon is the Cavern of Earth. The enemies here hit hard, but we've just upgraded our parties, so it's manageable. Plus, there are still loads of undead enemies who are basically just free XP with Dia. The Earth Elementals in particular are very tanky. The gear upgrades haven't improved our abysmal damage output. The evasion boosting strat from the Pisco Demon fight works well as long as you're patient and are willing to leave and restore your spell slots every 1 or 2 of these fights. There really isn't any interesting loot here, so I'll just skip ahead past a while of me roaming around these caves and get right to the boss fight. It's really, really easy. Meet Vampire the Vampire. He's undead. We have a shitload of spells to damage undead enemies. He dies in 2 casts of Diaga. star ruby obtained, and easiest dungeon cleared. Sort of. We take the star ruby up north to the Giant's Cave, provide this large lad with a snack. Go down to the Sage's Cave, and talk to him to get the Earth Rod. Now we have to go all the way back through the Cave of Earth, where we fought Vampire the Vampire. Still no interesting loot down here, so we can just take on the first fiend. The Lich, the Fiend of Earth. Except there is no Earth damage type in this game, so he's also undead. Which means this boss fight is also hella easy. To his credit, he does manage to last for more than a single round, but boy is it nice to actually deal good damage for a change. Too bad it's the last time this will happen for a hot minute. And with that, we have the first of 4 crystals restored. The next city is Crescent Lake, where we can actually get a weapon upgrade for all of our mages, the Mithril Hammer. There are also some extremely useful spells: Stona, Protera, Invisora, and Exit. Exit unfortunately can't be accessed until you do the class upgrade side quest that we'll do in a bit. There's also a hidden gathering of old white men in pointy hats. Don't worry about it. They gave us a canoe. They're chill. So we can paddle upstream to Mount Gulg, the next dungeon. If it wasn't clear by the whole being inside a volcano thing, this is the fire-themed dungeon. Sure would be nice if we had some ice spells, wouldn't it? We do have Null Blaze, which prevents us from taking stupid amounts of damage in combat, but yeah, no relying on Dia here. We're back to evade and bonk tactics. This is the first dungeon with damaging floor tiles. They hurt you when you move across them, but it's like 1 damage per step, and you can't encounter monsters on these tiles, so they make for much faster traversal through dungeons. No interesting loot in here, so we'll just skip ahead to the Fiend of Fire, Merilith. Of course, I start by buffing my party with Null Blaze and Invisora to try to take as little damage as possible. Then I silence Merilith, because in addition to her fire spells, she also has a couple status-afflicting spells that I'd rather avoid. And spells also seem to ignore evasion. Once she's silenced, she'll still try to cast spells, they just have no effect. So I'm free to just wail away at her for like 5 minutes. Eventually she gets Thanos snapped and we restore the second crystal. And we'll go straight to the next dungeon, the Cavern of Ice. This dungeon is slightly obnoxious. You have to go into the most obvious trap ever and then make your way back up to the key item. There are a bunch of undead enemies here, so that's some nice and easy XP. Since the Cavern of Ice is, you know, the ice dungeon, Null Frost is also helpful to have on at least a couple of mages. By running onto this messed up tile totally intentionally, and not just because you were hyper-fixated on the treasure, you end up on the correct side of the floor traps to actually get the key item. The evil eye here is, despite all visual evidence to the contrary, not undead. I mean, come on, it looks like a giant evil zombie cyclops head. Why doesn't Dia work on it? While of bonking later, and we get the Levistone. With the Levistone, we can now access the next and final traversal upgrade, and the staple of the series, the airship. Which in turn means that we can upgrade our class from White Mage to White Wizard. To do this quest, we have to complete this dungeon. Which of course means we need to park way the fuck over here, because the airship won't land on anything but a perfectly flat grassy field. The Citadel of Trials is also kind of obnoxious to get through. The enemies aren't too much more dangerous than anything else we've been fighting, and most of them are undead, so go down pretty quick. But it's a maze that you have to use teleporters to get through, which is always the most fun way to navigate a dungeon. It's more than worth it though, and not just for the class upgrades. This is where we start getting items like the healing staff. Certain pieces of equipment have spells attached to them, so if you don't have them equipped, party members can use them in battle to cast the spells attached to them. In this case, heal. This means that we have a way to infinitely heal our party in combat. Granted, the base heal spell doesn't restore much HP, but it's better than nothing, and we'll start getting more and more of these types of items as the game progresses. And even more importantly, the gauntlets. These can be used in battle to cast Thundera. Finally, we have a way to deal elemental damage. More than that though, Thundera gets cast on every enemy. With a single item, we've gone from having to painstakingly grind down the health of every enemy in a group, one at a time, to being able to wipe the floor with stupid mob trash. Alright, it's not quite that good, but it sure felt like it at this point. Includes ruby armlets, and of course the rat's tail, the key item we need to upgrade our classes. Don't ask me why a rat's tail is the symbol of courage we need. I don't get it, that's just how it is. We take the rat's tail over to the Dragon King in the Dragon Caves, and in honor of his sparkly majesty, the party takes off their hoods. Yeah, that's the only visual difference for the White Wizard, they just pull down their hoods. Cool. But now we have access to all the white magic in the game, so we can go and pick up that exit spell from earlier. Next town up is Gaia, which actually has some pretty important gear upgrades. Ruby Armlet is of course just more armor, but the Protect Ring is the best armor in the game, stats-wise, and grants immunity to death magic. We can also get the final upgraded versions of Cure and Dia here, as well as Null All, Dispel, and Holy. Finally, an actually offensive spell, and a damn good one at that. Although I am very embarrassed to admit that I didn't realize how good it was until the very end of the game. I thought that it was the final upgrade for Dia and only damaged undead enemies. It really wasn't until the final boss that I actually got any use out of it, which made some of the fights a lot more painful than they needed to be. Alright, let's get back to actually progressing. On this random desert tile, there's a caravan selling a bottled fairy. We buy it, take it back to Gaia where we free it and get given Oxiel in return. We'll be able to use this to breathe underwater. Can you guess what the theme of the next dungeon will be? At the next town on rack, we can buy the Heliga spell, which will be nice. Null Death is redundant now that we have Protect Rings. We hand the Oxiel to this random mermaid? Ghost? Merghost? Yeah, I don't know, but we hop in a barrel submarine and sink to the bottom of the ocean where we find the water-themed dungeon. Good thing we've got those shiny new gauntlets to make progressing through here about 1,000,000 times faster. The string of dungeons with actually usable loot continues with our acquisition of the Light Axe. Using it casts Dira, so we have a free undead damaging stick now too, and the Mage Staff that casts Fire. And here we have the Rosetta Stone, the next key item. But just because we've got the key item doesn't mean we're done. There's a whole other half of the dungeon to get through. And this half has a ribbon. Ribbons are a head armor that give the same effect as a Null All, huge in combat. This unfortunately doesn't stack with the spell Null All, but it does save me time from having to cast it on anyone wearing a ribbon. And of course, we do also have the Fiend of Water, Kraken. We start by raising evasion. Shocking, I know. Kraken has an ink move that causes blindness. Unfortunately, ink isn't actually a spell, so silencing him doesn't do anything. But we do have Blinda and high evasion, so it's not too much of a problem. Then we can just use our newly acquired magic items and auto battle much, much faster than we were before. In only a few minutes, we're already restoring the third crystal. Easy day. Next, we head all the way back to Melmond and hand the Rosetta Stone over to this dude, who beams the knowledge of a once-dead language directly into our brains. As you do. So we can pop on over here, chat to these weirdos, and get a chime. The chime allows us to start climbing this mysterious tower in the desert. There's some loot here that we can actually use. The healing helm has the same effect of the healing staff, but now multiple party members can use a free heal in the same turn. Thor's hammer casts Thundera, same as the gauntlets, but it's also a straight weapon upgrade from the mithril hammers, so I'll equip it instead. On the third floor of the tower, we've got a mini-boss fight against a blue dragon. With our newfound attack power, it's an easy fight. Then we scoot on past this robot and... wait. What was that about a warp cube? Shit, hang on. I promise I have played this game before. My dumbass just completely forgot about the waterfall dungeon. It's accessible as soon as you get the canoe, which means we're pretty heavily overleveled for it. There's no loot here outside of the final room, so we just sprint to the end, take out the forced encounter with some fire, grab the wizard staff that casts Confuse, not super useful, another ribbon, and Defender that casts Blink, potentially useful. Then this robot gives us the warp cube and immediately kills itself. Alright, now we can go to the flying fortress. More good loot here, a protect ring that we've already got on all our party members, the last ribbon we'll get, a white robe and a black robe. The white robe casts Invisora, super nice to have infinite free casts of a party-wide evasion boost, and the black robe casts Blizzara, granting us access to the one type of elemental damage we were missing. This is also where I could pick up the adamantine needed to create Excalibur. I'm not going to do that because I can't use Excalibur and it'll just be a waste of time to run back to the dwarves. But if you want to pick up the knight's best weapon, this is where you can do that. By interacting with this big-ass glowing sphere thing, we can see the location of the final dungeon. It's the first dungeon. But there's one item left to collect here, a Protect Cloak, another vital piece of armor and the only shield that can be equipped by white mages. Now we can take on the fourth and final fiend, Tiamat, the Fiend of Wind. We of course start by buffing our party's evasion and elemental resistances. Then go in with the elemental damaging spells. We can actually consistently do double-digit damage numbers to a boss. Absolutely incredible. Tiamat can be silenced, but this didn't actually seem to stop him from casting spells like Thunderbolt or Poison Gas, so I don't know, I guess don't bother. With a bit of patience, more than would have been needed if I had remembered how the holy spell worked, he goes down without too much trouble and we can restore the final crystal. Now, the smart thing to do before going into the final dungeon would be to stock up on healing items, especially ethers, to restore spell slots. As should be obvious by now though, I am not a smart person, so I did not do this. Inside the Chaos Shrine, we poke the orb with our magic rocks and get time traveled 2,000 years into the past. Neat. Going into the Chaos Shrine of the past is the point of no return for the final dungeon, in case you find that you need more items, to swap out spells, or grind for a few extra levels. The final dungeon has multiple boss fights, the first of which is super lame. This Death Eye, which, like the Evil Eye, is somehow not undead even though it totally looks like it should be. Our items make short work of it, and we can go take a nap and wait for this rock to turn into a ladder. This whole dungeon is a series of rematches against each of the 4 fiends we've previously defeated. First up is the easiest, the Lich, made even easier with our free casts of Dira. He does have more health here and deals out more damage, but he's still undead. Easy peasy, and we don't even need to burn any spell slots. Since I only have the handful of ethers I've picked up while adventuring, I want to treat spells as a limited resource and only use them as necessary. And for this dollar store Gravelord Nito, they really aren't necessary. Before the next fiend, we can pick up a second Protect Cloak, and it's time for the rematch with Merilith. Her magic is generally pretty weak, and she really likes trying to cast Death, which we're immune to, so just raising evasion to avoid her physical attacks, then using items to deal elemental attacks and heal is enough to kill her pretty easily. Then we have Kraken. He's still largely immune to being silenced, so really the same strategy as the first fight applies here. He doesn't seem to have much magic defense, so our attacking items are able to take him out in just a couple minutes. After he's dead, we can pick up the best weapon in the game, at least for this run, the Masamune. It does the second highest damage of any weapon in the game, behind only Excalibur, and it can be used by any class in the game, making just normal attacks actually viable for the first time in this entire run. And we've got the perfect test dummy to try it out on. Tiamat, the fourth and final fiend. But for real this time. Oh yeah, that's some damage. The Masamune actually outdamages a lot of our other offensive options. Sometimes. Because the physical stats of these mages are pretty ass, the damage fluctuates from around 10 damage a turn to well over 200. It even has the potential to outdamage Holy, the most powerful white magic spell and the second most damaging spell in the game. This Tiamat fight is almost identical to the previous one, but goes much quicker with our fancy new sword. Which means there's nothing left to do but beat the final boss, after a brief, villainous monologue of course. And holy hell, this fight sucks. Tiamat took a while to beat, right? Like, not forever, but it took several minutes. Tiamat in the Chaos Shrine has 2,700 HP. Wanna know how much HP this fucker has in the Pixel Remaster? 20 fucking thousand. Why? Who thought that that was an acceptable number? You know what else he has? A spell that fully heals him and has a random chance of being used. For the love of God, stockpile items, because if you're unlucky, this fight can basically go on forever. I had multiple attempts that lasted over 20 minutes and ended when I rage quit because the fucker healed himself when I had almost killed him. For my final successful attempt, I literally just got lucky, and he decided to not heal himself. Holy does around 270 damage per cast. So the most efficient way to kill him would be to cast this spell 74 times, which would take 19 rounds of every party member were casting nothing but Holy for the entire fight. Unfortunately, I can't just sit here and cast Holy, because I have to heal and buff, and I've only got so many spell slots to work with because my dumbass didn't come in with enough supplies. And I have to heal and buff a lot, because he really likes casting Flare, the strongest spell in the game that does several hundred damage to each of my party members whenever he decides to cast it. I could have used my save from before to buy more elixirs and redo the whole dungeon, but at this point it was a matter of pride. I knew it was possible to beat the bastard with what I had, so I was gonna do it. 7 minutes. It took less than 7 minutes to beat him because he decided not to heal himself. This fight is fucking stupid. So, can you beat Final Fantasy I Pixel Remaster while only using healers? Yeah, you can, but I don't recommend it. Once I realized that evasion is kinda OP, there's no reason to use any other strategies. It's just slow and pretty repetitive. That being said, I do plan on doing this healers only challenge with as many of the other mainline games in the series as I can. But that's gonna do it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.